Hi everyone, it's Chris and welcome back to another video. Thank you very much for joining me today, and thank you to everybody who takes the time to watch these videos, to leave a comment, to engage in the conversation, to like and subscribe. And I've just noticed that I've gone beyond 3,000 subscribers, which is just incredible. I never thought there would be that many people who'd want to listen to some old bloke talk about the music he grew up with and the music he still loves. So thank you very much to everyone who takes the time to watch and subscribe and so on. So thank you. Now, today I want to share with you about a dozen or so bands that I think over the years have been overlooked, maybe underappreciated, in some cases underrated. And there's a variety of stuff here, some from North America, some from Britain. As I said, I've got about a dozen or so. Some of them I've done videos on before, so I'm not going to dwell too long on each artist, but let me know what you think in the comments below. Who do you think, what bands do you think have been over time maybe overlooked or underappreciated? Here's my first one from New York, Blue Oyster Cult. Lots of people don't know this band for much more than Don't Fear the Reaper, which is a great song, but it's nowhere near their best. And they produced some great albums. Here's one from '81, Fire of Unknown Origin, which features their single Burning for You, which is a great song, and this is a great album. I think my favourite album by them is their third album, Secret Treaties, which has The Subhuman and Astronomy. The latter is my favourite song by them, and one of my favourite hard rock songs, in fact. I think this is a great album, and I think they're an overlooked band. As I think the next band are, it's a British band, more influential than maybe people appreciate, and that band is UFO. I think in their vocalist, Phil Mogg, they have the most underrated, overlooked, underappreciated vocalist of all time. He is just a brilliant singer, so suited to this band. He's got a tremendous voice. And this band, the thing that I think set them apart is they're able to play really good rock songs, but they did so with melody. Even the guitarist Michael Schenker was able to produce really melodic solos in the middle of some really good hard rock songs. Sometimes rock music can be not tuneless, but lack that melody. Not with UFO. They produce some fantastic songs. This is a great example, Lights Out. And in their guitarist, Michael Schenker, with blonde hair, his flying V's, leather, not only did he have the look, but he had the sound as well. Tremendous guitarist, great chops, really influential guitarist. We should be talking about him in the same breath, I think, as Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, and other guitarists of that kind of era. Tremendous band. They did go on, obviously, to produce one of the greatest live albums of all time, Strangers in the Night. Chock full of really good melodic hard rock songs, beautifully performed, credible guitar tone from Michael Schenker. Next up is a band I've done a video on, hugely influential Welsh band, weren't commercially successful, but tremendous band, did some really good albums. Here's two of them, and the band is Budgie, In for the Kill, Never Turn Your Back on a Friend. They were able to produce a whole variety of different sort of music, kind of light and shade. There was some folky elements, some proggy elements, some real hard rock stuff as well. So the riff, for example, in for the Kill, really good hard rock stuff on that particular album. Crash Course in Brain Surgery, covered by Metallica, as is Bread Fan. Really good, influential band, overlooked for me. Another British band overlooked, I think, are Wishbone Ash. Now, I don't know if a perfect album exists personally, but this album has no duff tracks on it. It's a great album. This is from, 72 or so. Argus, just a brilliant album, tremendous. Again, hugely influential, and it doesn't matter what incarnation they were still able to produce some really good stuff. Again, very influential on lots of bands, especially British ones that followed them. For example, Iron Maiden, with that dual guitar sound. Next up is another British band, although I think their main guy is South African actually, and it's Manfred Mann's Earth Band. I think this band are underappreciated and overlooked. This is a great album. If you like prog rock, you've probably got this album. It's a pretty proggy album. There was a single at the time, it's not on the album. Oh, what's it called? Oh, Joybringer. And that's very proggy and very kind of classically influenced, as this whole album is. But the musicianship on this is absolutely top notch. They went on to produce, and have more commercial success. The Roaring Silence, for example, which features their version of Blinded by the Light, the Bruce Springsteen song, which they made famous. They have a guitarist on it called Dave Flett, who went on to play in the touring version of Thin Lizzy. But the musicianship is tremendous on that album. And I think that really is the case on the album that came before Roaring Silence, which is this one, which is possibly my favourite album from them, actually. It's called Nightingales and Bombers, strange title, but it's named after the experience of a World War II ornithologist who was trying to record nightingales and recorded instead bombers going over to Germany. And I think that clip is on here somewhere. Really good album, almost some jazz fusion moments on this album. What's the guitarist's name? Is it Mick Rogers, possibly? Really good guitarist, tremendous stuff. Next band is an American band, not sure where they come from, possibly New York. They were signed to a major label, Capitol. They had the same management group as Kiss. They should have been massive because they were able to produce some really good hard rock songs. They should have been a big arena act, but never made it. And I think they've been overlooked over the years. And that band is Starz. If nothing else, they have the greatest band logo of all time. This is their debut from '76. Some great songs that they produced over the years. This is their final album. Their second album, which has a song called Sing It, Shout It, which is the best song that Kiss never wrote. Really, really good album. This is their third album, less good. Their last album was pretty good. This is a good hard rock band who I think have been overlooked over the years and are worthy of revisiting. Next up is a band that possibly are not underappreciated more. I think their first album is underappreciated, maybe overlooked in favour of other debut albums. But for me, alongside Van Halen's first album and Boston's first album, this is the greatest debut hard rock album of all time. Montrose, named after their guitarist Ronnie Montrose, had the singer Sammy Hagar, also had in the band what's his name? Bill Church on bass, and a guy called Denny Carmassi, who went on to play with Heart in their hair metal days, also played with Coverdale Page. A really tight band, and this album is just stellar. This is one of the greatest debut hard rock albums of all time. It's quite front loaded, so the first three songs, Rock the Nation, Bad Motor Scooter, Space Station Number 5, are just immense songs, so it's quite front loaded, but it's an absolutely brilliant album, and again massively influential on bands like Van Halen, for example. Sammy Hagar went on to play with Van Halen, but this album was very influential on Van Halen. They did go on to produce one other album with Sammy Hagar, Paper Money, which has a song called I Got the Fire, which is as good as anything on their first album. And then Sammy Hagar left. I think tensions between him and Ronnie Montrose, and they went a bit blander, I think. But I think an overlooked band, and certainly that album I think is underappreciated and overlooked. Next is coming back to Britain for a kind of blues rock band, and that band are Groundhogs. Tremendous band, produced some really good kind of hard rock, blues rock kind of stuff. In there, guitarist and singer Tony McPhee, who died, a couple of years ago now, tremendous kind of songwriter and guitarist. This probably is their greatest moment. It's probably their most famous one, Split. Side 1 is Split, part 1, 2, 3, 4. Part 2 is tremendous. I love Cherry Red on that album as well. It's a really, really good album. Band named after a John Lee Hooker song, Groundhog Blues. Great live band as well. This is Hogging the Stage, which goes back to a concert in the early 70s at Leeds University. But I think for me, an overlooked hard rock band. The next guy I've mentioned before as being overlooked and underappreciated. I think he's one of the best guitarists ever. I think he's superb. It's a Canadian fella. His name is Frank Marino. His band were Mahogany Rush. Now, when he first started, I think this is his first album, Max Zoom. Kind of a Hendrix copyist he was seen as. I think he was more influenced by Hendrix than a copyist. And he took a while to kind of get his sound together. This is a tremendous album, World Anthem. Really good album. Yes, it has some Hendrixy moments, Hey Little Lover, Broken Heart Blues, but it also has some really epic tracks as well. Requiem for a Sinner, In My Ways, really good stuff. And in 1980 he produced this album, What's Next, and in keeping with the kind of sound of 1980, it's a really good hard rock year. There's some great songs on here. You got Living, Something's Coming Our Way, which has got just a stellar guitar solo. And if you do like guitar solos, and I really do, then you're going to love Frank Marino. So I think he's an underappreciated guitarist, and they're an underappreciated band. Next up are a band from New York, a band that I first heard of reading Sounds and looking at the heavy metal chart, and there was a song that came up by a band called Riot, and that song was called Warrior. And I remember it was either Alan Freeman or Tommy Vance playing that song. I thought, oh my god, this is brilliant. And it was in the late 70s that I bought Rock City. This came out in 77, but I didn't buy it until I think it was in the 5th year at school, but about 1979, 78, 79. Really short album. It's only just over 30 minutes. But in Warrior, Rock City, Overdrive, there were 3 tracks on side 1. Wow, brilliant hard rock songs. Fantastic. I think the album that followed, for me, is their best album. This is Narita, named after the airport. They have this kind of strange little mascot that appears on all of their albums. I don't know what he is, but anyway, named after Tokyo's airport, Narita. Some great songs on here. Waiting for the Taking, White Rock, 49er, Road Racing, brilliant song. Narita is a tremendous instrumental. So this is a great album. I saw them actually support Sammy Hagar. They were fantastic. On the same label as Sammy Hagar. And then about 2 years later, I think there were some issues with the label, with Capitol. They brought out this album on Elektra. There was some contractual dispute with Capitol, so this didn't come out until a couple of years after that last one. But a really good album, Fire Down Under. The title track is great. Swords and Tequila, Don't Bring Me Down, Don't Hold Me Back, Altar of the King. Some real, and again, that mascot, really good band. Often forgotten, often overlooked, often underappreciated. Back to Britain. This is a band quite difficult to categorise, which is probably one of the reasons I really like them, because they're quite different. Again, their styles vary depending on when you start listening to them. The band are Be-Bop Deluxe. I remember seeing this lot on Top of the Pops, and I wasn't sure what to make of, not Top of the Pops, Old Grey Whistle Test. And I wasn't sure what to make of them, because there was a guy with, short hair playing a big guitar. He wasn't playing a Strat or a Les Paul, but his guitar playing was just off the chart. It was just incredible. And I remember in the late 70s going out and buying this single, Hot Valves, which has Made in Heaven, one of their famous songs, Bring Back the Spark, Blazing Apostles, Jet Silver and the Dolls of Venus. And it's a tremendous single. And that last song, Jet Silver and the Dolls of Venus, comes from that. And this is, as the name suggests, Jet Silver and the Dolls of Venus is quite a David Bowie influenced album. Jet Silver and the Dolls of Venus, Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. This is a very art rock, proggy rock. There is some hard rock moments in it, of course, some absolutely brilliant guitar playing, but yeah, very Bowie influenced, and you can tell by the picture, it's quite glammy as well. Really good album. It's one of my favourites by them. I might do a favourite 5 on them. They're a tremendous band. And then over the years, they produced 5 albums in all. The first 3 were all named after guitars, so Axe Victim, Futurama, which is some kind of guitar, I think, anyway. But there's some great tracks on that. Soundtrack, for example, is brilliant. And then this album, Sunburst Finish. Sunburst is the finish of a particular guitar, isn't it? Of a Les Paul. That's a great album. Crying to the Sky is unbelievably good. And then these 2 albums, you can tell by the look of the band there that they're changing their look, they're changing their sound. These were the last 2 albums by them. So if you like kind of prog rock, the kind of Bowie kind of sound, Axe Victim would be your thing. If you're much more into the kind of new wave sound, then Drastic Plastic would be your sound. And that for me is a band that are overlooked and underappreciated. Incredibly good band, incredibly good. Next up is a band that were originally a British band, some English and some Scottish members who had more success, I think, in the States because their sound was probably more American than it was British. And that's a band called The Babies. This is one of their later albums, which does have a couple of Americans in it, including this guy. His name is Jonathan Cain. He went on, I think, shortly after this album to join Journey in 81. And he's the guy who wrote Don't Stop Believing, so he's a seriously good songwriter and musician. I wish I'd written that song. But you know, great little band. John Waite, the vocalist, good vocalist. He went on to some. He had a little bit of solo success, I think, didn't he, with Missing You, which was in the kind of mid-80s. But a decent band, some really good songs on this. One of the later albums. This is kind of a best of, terrible cover, awful name as well, The Babies. But Isn't It Time, Midnight Rendezvous, Back on My Feet Again. Every Time I Think of You is a tremendous song. It's probably a little bit more power pop, softer rock, yacht rock. I don't know if I'd call it that necessarily. Great vocalists, some good melodies, some good hooks, and I think an overlooked band. And the last of my dozen or so overlooked, underappreciated bands possibly aren't a band that are underappreciated, but I think potentially they're a little bit overlooked in favour of bands like the Stones and the Beatles, because they came out at a similar time. This band are hugely influential, and they did have a lot of success, and they were just brilliant songwriters, and that of course is the Kinks. Now you may or may not agree that they are an underappreciated or overlooked band. For me they are a bit, because they were in the shadow of the Stones and in the shadow of the Beatles. But, you know, in something like You Really Got Me, which is from this album, their debut, it's probably the first time that we heard that kind of, you know, sort of feedback drenched kind of guitar sound, massively influential on hard rock. You know, this is with its it's awful kind of cover with its Kiss typeface. This, when you look at the track listing on here, you realise just how good this band were. You Really Got Me, All Day and All of the Night, Tired of Waiting for You, See My Friend. I think, is it See My Friend that has a sitar in it? Long before the Beatles thought about doing it. Dedicated Follower of Fashion, Sunny Afternoon, Waterloo Sunset, Lola, Days. Oh my word, what a band. What an influential band. And I think possibly because they were in the shadow of the Stones and the Beatles, possibly an overlooked band as well. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What do you think are, you know, the bands that are underappreciated, underrated, and possibly overlooked in favour of less good but more famous bands? Thanks very much, folks. Thank you for subscribing, and if you don't, please consider that. And thank you for watching and leaving a comment, and I'm sure I'll be back sometime soon with another video. Cheers.